What's up, family? It's your boy J-Man, Minister J-Man in the house. Welcome to another episode of Cross Perspectives, where faith meets real, relevant conversation. Look, no filters, no fluff, just honest, truthful dialogue. You know I'm not alone. I'm here with my girl,
Don't do it.
Minister Naomi.
I knew you were going to do this.
Team Naming is back once again. Hey, look, we're excited because we got a special guest with us today.
Yes.
You guys know him right here in the city of Pittsburgh, City of Champions, not other than Pastor Murphy, senior pastor of my church,
Hey,
the Corona Baptist Church,
say that again for the folk
right
in the
in
back.
Homewood. Corona Baptist Church,
Yeah.
senior pastor, Pastor Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
What's up, Pastor?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, man, you know, good.
Man, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Naomi. I love you guys, man. Love it.
Glad to have you.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you. Look, we got a lot to discuss today, but first, let's start with the Kingdom Collab section.
Yes.
Look, you already see we got the Gifted by God apparel, gifted with the number 1. Shout out to Ahmad Barron, the CEO, founder of Gifted by God. You can check him out, giftedbygod.com. Look, his story is amazing. If you go on his website and you check to learn more, it will tell you a little bit more about his story, his background, and why he decided to do this. But he's all about empowering others to live out their individual gifts and live them out abundantly. So shout out to Ahmad. Hey, go ahead, check out their brand. You'll see it down in the lower thirds, giftedbygod.com with an I. Oh, excuse me, not with the I, with the 1. Gifted by God with a number 1. We good with that?
Yes.
Look, so let's get right to it. So, Pastor Murphy, we know you're not a young buck in the game when it comes to being a pastor.
No.
But we're definitely in times where we see a lot of the battling between the traditional church and this new modernized style of church where we see with different generations. So, let's get right into it. So, what do you consider to be timeless and what do you consider to be flexible when it comes to kind of the old traditions and kind of the new ways of doing church?
So I think that when you ask that question, it's almost a loaded question, right? Because what's timeless is kind of subjective. So what the saints, the seasoned saints, as we like to call them, consider timeless are like your hymns, the ushers marching in, choir marching in. They kind of look at those things as timeless, right? Those things that we should never get away from. The issue that we have, though, is that those same things that we consider timeless are not necessarily what draws people to the kingdom of God. See, one of the things that I'm big on, you know this, J. Mose, I'm big on the kingdom of God, and I'm big on us having what is relevant for today, right? So just because Grandma and them sung "Oh, great is thy God" or "Oh, how I love Jesus" doesn't necessarily mean it's going to resonate with me the same way. So I always think that music is flexible. I think the style of worship is flexible. I think the way that we serve our community is flexible, right? Y'all got the right person. I think we hold on to this thing of being so traditional sometimes that we miss the whole ideal of pulling people in and getting them with a relationship with God. When my Bible, what I understand, and when I look through the Bible, it's all about relationship. It's not about traditions as much as it's about relationship. We went from traditions in the Old Testament to relationship in the New Testament.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. I didn't think about it like that, but yeah, that is so true.
I mean, think about it, how the Old Testament is based upon traditions, right? And when we get to the New Testament, Jesus is giving them something new, right? He's talking about relationship, right? He's talking about having a relationship. Everything is around relationship. Even in the Old Testament, We were created to worship, but God created us to have relationship. He wanted to walk among us.
It's like a cross in the middle between the Old Testament and the New Testament.
It is. So, and it's funny you say that. So, if it is like a cross between the two, then where do we kind of draw that line or make the connection of the balance between compromise and relevance?
Mm.
Because a lot of times we could get so focused on one side or the other and not really find a way to find that healthy balance.
Yes. Um, there's certain topics though that I could think of as far as for relevant. You said relevance
Yeah.
and versus what?
Compromise.
Compromise. So as far as for attire for church, um, do you look at that as conforming or do you keep it traditional? Because that is kind of like a touchy subject because, the old church mothers,
Sure.
it's below the knee. Okay?
Yeah.
It's below the knee. You can wear a scarf. And for praise and worship, you're not getting up there with no holy jeans. You're not doing all that.
Right.
But what's relevant is the modern day worship team that looks like H&M or it's very modernized. So I guess it's kind of difficult because you want to stay relevant, but you also want to stay a little bit more traditional. But that's just like one example that I could think of, or music. But go
Well,
ahead.
what about when you talk about attire? There's a thing called modesty,
Yes.
right? And I think that as long as we are operating in modesty, I think we're good. I think that a lot of times the old church mothers, because that's how they were raised, you had to have the turtleneck, you know what I mean, and down to your ankle. And if it was knee length, then you were, oh my goodness, look at her. But there's a thing of modesty, right? And I think if we operate in modesty and we operate in that place, I think that's where the blend is understanding what modesty is. I think that we also got to understand is that what was modest in 1950 is not necessarily the same thing in 2026,
6, yeah.
right? I think that you talked about compromise or conformity. I don't think it is. I think it's just you have to be relevant in the generation that you're in.
The I know I was raised with older women, and like when I leave the house, I'm making sure I'm presentable. Newer generations, their take on things are a little different. And so I do feel like there is some importance of still teaching people how to dress, but it's the way that it is delivered is probably the biggest topic.
Well, I think that, to be honest, I think it's more so addressing the why.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the issue is not necessarily what you're wearing or what type you're wearing, but it's why. Okay, why were the mothers saying that you got to have it down there? What was the mindset behind that? Because if you get to that mindset, and it's like, okay, well, you're protecting, you're not showing, then you can teach that kind of lesson to the newer generation that, hey, you can wear what you want, but be modest because we want to still protect or whatever the case may be. And not just with the tire. And this is kind of where I think that line gets drawn. A lot of times we get so stuck in tradition that we don't even know the why behind why we're doing half the things that we're doing.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good.
I tell a story about my grandmother. We're talking about the why you do things, right? My grandmother, y'all might hear this, but this is real for me. I grew up in Beckley, West Virginia, and in Beckley, West Virginia, Grew up. My grandfather was a coal miner. Family did not have much; they had just enough. My grandparents had 5 children. Small house, 5 children. And my grandmother, when she would prepare some things, she would have like a bird, like for say for a ham or something like that was kind of a bigger meat. She would have to cut it and would have to cook it in two separate things. When my mother started her family, she would do the same things. And I remember asking my mom, "Why do you cut that? Why are you
Mm.
cutting it half?" And she said, "I don't know. It's just the way that my
Mm.
mother did it." And not understanding that things had changed. The ovens were bigger now, right? And that we just get used to this is just the way it is, and not understanding why it was. So why were we dressing in 1950 that way, right? Opposed to we can teach this is what we consider modest in 1957, and this is kind of what we are considering modest in 2026. I think when we talk about traditions, there's nothing wrong with teaching traditions
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that why, but we should not be stuck in traditions of things,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's nothing to know. There's nothing wrong with knowing where you come from, but also understand where you are and where you're going.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's good.
And that's good. And so, from a pastoral perspective, then
Hmm.
having a church that is multi-generational,
Mm.
Yeah.
and then you have kind of these like older traditional kind of values where it's like they value structure and reverence and consistency, and you got the younger generation or the newer generation that kind of values like authenticity and relatability and engagement, like knowing that you have those multiple generations and the multiple values under one roof in your one flock. How do you kind of navigate that
Mm.
to kind of present or structure your ministry in a way that is meeting the needs of all the generations, stretching and growing one generation into the other and the other into the another?
So that is a great question. One of the ways that I look at that, because as you know, in our church, we're dealing with that now. We're dealing with a generation that wants, they still want 1970,
Mm-hmm.
right? We also dealing with a generation that want to be all the other things we say, reliability,
Mm-hmm.
and all these things. What we have done, I think, is kind of merging the two together. Is there's nothing wrong with structure. I think in anything that you do, it should be done decent order. I think there should be structure in it, right? And we teach structure, and you teach structure, and you teach structure, and you teach it, but you give them the why it's like this. So as long as you're doing that, the older generation still see that structure, but then you have to reach back and teach the older generation why you're doing some of the newer things.
Ooh.
Let me tell you, we had about I, so Greg Rouse, which is my sound guy, right? I call him Super Genius. I had a vision to kind of change the sound in Corona Baptist Church. Well, part of my vision is arts. I wanted to create this space that was free for people to worship, people to use arts, whether it was dancing, plays, whatever. We wanted to create this space. Greg took that vision and we started to map out the space. There was pushback
Mm.
from the older saints saying, "Hey, I don't know, this is not godly."
Mm.
Right? So we had to teach them what was godly about it. When we start putting that sound in and start putting the screens up and start using it for those things, and they start to see the vision, understand that this is just another medium that we're using to evangelize and to draw people closer to Christ.
Mm.
It became now if you don't turn that sound system on, the older saints are upset.
Mm.
Mother Maxine looked at me a few Sundays ago, and I said, "I'm not going to run the video." She's like, "You finally brought us into the 21st century. Now you're going to take it away." But you have to teach. You got to teach both sides of that aisle.
Sometimes they're
You
resistant.
right. Sometimes they're resistant. Right. People change is hard. But as a pastor looking at it pastorally, I got to teach the younger generation so they can understand why the older generation or the seasoned saints feel this way and believe this. But I also got to teach the older generation why it's important to meet the new generation where they are. And I think it's been done. We see evidence of churches all over America that are blending that. I think the issue sometimes, if I can say it, sometimes the pastors don't want to move from traditions and into the other, into understanding those things. Sometimes we as pastors get stuck in the way we grew up. Am I talking too much? In the way that we grew up,
No, because you speaking truth. 'Cause
because look, Naomi, I was one of those pastors. So like you said, like I'm not new to this. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I had got stuck in, man, when I was a kid in New Hope Baptist Church down in Beckley, West Virginia. This is how we did it, right? And I was stuck there. So I thought all church should be like that, right? I thought that way until I went out to Denver, Colorado, and Pastor Norm Chase had a different take on it,
okay.
and it opened me up to seeing that, man, the kingdom is different than the traditions of that I learned, right? That the kingdom is different. So you become a little more kingdom minded. And if you can become kingdom minded, you will understand that you're gonna meet people where they are, but you gotta teach traditions. In the Bible, it talks about they were going over the brook, and the elders said, I'm paraphrasing, the elders said, hey, we're gonna build an altar here. And we're going to build an altar, so when the generations come back here, they're going to say, what ye me these stones? And we can tell them what those stones meant, that how God brought us over. And so those are the same things that we're teaching when we talk about, we can teach the traditions, right?
Yeah.
But we need to know, but we need to also know where we're going to meet this other generation to get them in a relationship with Jesus.
I think one of the biggest challenges, though, is social media for the younger generation, because that is their means of communication. Anything that goes out on that platform, it can be taken in any kind of way. And so you have a generation, I know for my teens, they know everything. You can't tell them nothing because they know everything. And I know they used to say that about my generation and probably yours too. But this generation is a little different, because I feel like with social media, it kind of empowers them to think a little bit more that they know what they don't know. And they're not interested in connecting with older people. I have to really get my kids to be like, go hang out with your grandparents. My grandparents were my world. That's what I did. I'm going over grandma's house, and I just love being around older people. But for this generation, they're just like, I'm cool. I'm on my phone. They don't socialize, and it's very hard to pull them away from their comfort zone. So that's a huge competition that I see for the church, because there's so much misinformation out there.
And I think with that, that's where you kind of have this shift in how you utilize technology in the church, because it's not just about being relevant and being viral and being the next, hot church, but it's really about understanding that the use of technology itself could be an evangelistic tool. And I think that's the part that we miss. That just as traditionally you go out and you evangelize in the streets with your pamphlets and your prayers and all the stuff,
The signs.
the same way you got to treat social media and technology like that. Like, hey, our website got to be an evangelistic tool. Our social media pages, our Facebook, our Instagrams, our virals, those got to be snapshots that can also be evangelistic tools to reach them.
They're so important now.
They're huge. So you say that, and I'm putting together now, just so everybody know, I'm putting together now a conference that's called Sent. And in this conference called Sent, we're focusing on both the traditional forms of evangelism, because we don't necessarily want to get rid of those, but we also want to those that are going out to say, hey, these are tools. These things are tools that you can use to reach those who are those kids who know so much, because they get, to try to get that out there to them so they can understand this. One of the things that I see, and as you guys are talking about it, and I think it's just a man, your generation knew too much, my generation knew too much. And this generation got so much information. To your point, Naomi, got so much information, a lot of misinformation. I think one of the things that we can do as a church, and if we are using our mediums correctly, is make sure that we are putting out the right content.
Yeah.
Right, the correct content. We're so, to Jamin's point, we're so stuck sometimes as pastors being the next hot church or being viral ourselves that we miss about, is that God? Where's God in that? So
Yeah.
so we have to, as a church, have to really focus on making sure that everything that we put out, whether it's a PSA, whether it's a little reel, that there is a God component to it. And there has to be time when we can bring in those young kids and say, hey, teach me what you're doing. And that may be the connection point.
Mhm.
I know when I go down to our children's church and they're doing their thing down there in our children's church, I want to connect to them where they're at. I'm going to always go back to, man, meet them where they're at, right? And meet them where they're at. Now, in your situation, you talk about your kids. Your kids are your kids. My kids are, man. Maybe, well, you went to school with my son, and so connecting. From parent to child is a little different, right? But as long as you continue to put these godly things in them, and showing them these godly things, they'll get around to getting away from the, what are they, PlayStation 5s now and all that good stuff. They'll get away from it. Yeah, they'll get away from it.
Planting the seeds.
Yeah, plant the seeds, right? We talk about
I
that,
thought
right?
my kids, they were not really into church like three, I'd say about 3 years ago. And I used to get so upset, like, they need to come to church. They need to come to church. And, grandparents are all up in it. And then my mom said, how do you know that the church that they're at is what they want? And I was like, oh, she was like, did you forget we ended up going to a church because you wanted to leave when you were 16? I left my old church to make sure that you were okay. And I was like, oh, you don't have to read me like that. But I stopped doing this and I asked them, and we don't go to the same churches, but they found a church that works for them. And I could see the difference versus, you know, forcing them to go to church and just sit there and literally just zone out. So
I stepped away from church. If I can just be transparent, honest, so I'm gonna be who I am. I had stepped away from church for a long time, because of that very thing that I was forced upon me. Right, I knew who God was. I love God, but this church thing, this traditionalism, this church thing. I'm in the choir. We're marching to Zion. That stuff. That was forced upon me, and I'm like, I don't want this, right? And what I'm learning even now in my pastorate, in my time as pastorate, is that if you force it upon the youth, they're going to rebel, right? But I like what you just said there. If they find something that fits them, if they find something that fits them, we've had people to join our church because their children were coming to our youth church.
yeah.
That they were coming to Pancake and Jesus, and one mother said, I had to go down here and see what this church was about because my son keeps coming. Right, my son keeps coming, and if my son is happy,
Yeah.
and my son is in a good place, then I needed to see what this was.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, if we just meet them where they are, sometimes we got to trust that our children can make the right decision for them.
That was hard.
That's good. So let's
You ain't there yet.
You ain't there
not
yet.
yet.
You're not there
But
yet.
let's turn that around slightly, and because I think there's something that you hint there that I think could benefit some, other pastors, younger pastors, people that are looking to pastor out there. So what if it's the other way around, where it's people in your flock that may feel as though there's somewhere else that meets their needs. How, as a pastor, do do you or how could other pastors kind of navigate that, you know, that kind of turnaround where it's not necessarily you did anything wrong,
Right.
but it's just that they may feel as though there's somewhere else for them, and that that back door is open, not from a negative perspective, but just from a perspective that their season might be up, there might be something else that's needed for them to get there. How could pastors kind of navigate without feeling whatever you feel, like, oh,
That is
maybe it's
personal.
me, it's
Mm.
personal, um, or I did something, and not just, oh, God got something more in store for them or meeting them somewhere and some other church has to meet that need. So how could pastors kind of navigate that and still be able to feel like they're still being successful in their ministry, even though people may be leaving, not just negative, but in positive, reasons?
Right. So one of the things I had to learn in my pastorate, man, is that reasons, seasons, and lifetime. Right. So people are with you reasons, for seasons, and for lifetime. Right. And everybody that came in with you in your ministry are not going to be with you at the end of your ministry.
Mm.
And if you are really building people up in their gifting, and you're really building people up to go forth in the kingdom, you should expect them to go out, right? You should expect them to go and help, right? I personally, I tell the ministers this all the time. I don't think I'm raising just ministers. I'm raising pastors, right? So I'm raising people up to go on and pastor, go on. So I don't expect you to stay with me forever, right? I expect you to walk in your gift and then go. But what happens with pastors, here we go with that traditionalism again. What happened with
Yeah.
pastors, traditionally, we are there for 25, 30, 40 years. We die in the pulpit,
Mhm.
and we don't expect anybody to leave us, right? Look, when people come through your church, you got to understand. You got to have discernment to understand. Hey, they're just here to get what they need to get. I may be a piece of that puzzle for them.
Mhm.
I may need to pour into them so they can get what they need to go on to greater things. And you have to be all right with that. But a lot of times pastors not, because a lot of pastors so egotistical when it comes to things. Their egos get in the way,
Mhm.
right? And it's not about kingdom. It's about, Doc, I'm running 10,000 people, right? I'd rather have a church of 300, 400, 50, 60 that are doing it the right way than have 10,000 of people that just coming in, and I'm not able to impact them, and they're not able to go out and impact the community. So a lot of times pastors just need to just really get out of themselves. If I can just be honest, just get out of themselves and understand reasons, seasons, and lifetime.
I think, and to add a layer onto that, and know what the needs are continuously by asking and being present. Because to your point, if you are saying you need to go somewhere to meet your needs, does the pastor know what your needs are? Because your needs may be a couple other people in the congregation's needs, and maybe there's some things that need to be changed within the church.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think too. I think pastors, leaders of churches, have to be prayerful. But I also think that leader of churches, sometimes we don't want to know what people's needs are. We look. I don't.
that's
I
true.
don't look. We like to think. Here's the ego of a pastor. We think that we know everything, got everything, that we are the SME of everything, and the truth of it is we're not,
Hmm.
right? And but we don't want to allow someone else to pour into someone else, because we may not have what they need at that time, right? And that's okay, but give them the opportunity. If we're talking about kingdom building, give them the opportunity to get that, and don't be mad about if they're going to get it.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, be more supportive. I made a grave error when this happened, when that very thing happened to me. I had a young lady who was on my ministry staff, and this is what I learned. She was leaving. I was man, man. I was heated, right? She came to me, right? Did the right thing. Hey, Pastor, I feel like God is calling me someplace else. I'm mad, man. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm in my feelings, and I was so mad that when I saw her on the streets, I wouldn't even speak to her.
Oh Lord.
Can I just be honest?
Yes.
Right, I'm being honest, right? I wouldn't even speak to it, I mean, I since then have apologized, men defense, but it was like I wouldn't because I'm mad. How dare you leave me, right? I license you. I build you up. You came in, da da da. You know what I mean, this is my thought process, but it took me to grow up in Christ, mature as a pastor, and say, hey, I get it now. You you needed more. You needed something that I wasn't able to give you. That you know what I mean that not that I just wasn't able to give to you, and you found that someplace else. And then start to support. It took a lot of humbleness, a lot of me eating that pie to go back and say, hey, I am sorry. It had to reestablish relationship because then there comes church hurt with that, right? Then comes church hurt, and a lot of times we as pastors won't humble ourselves to say I was wrong or I understand. We'll leave you out there licking your wounds and not even trying to solve it and say, hey, it's on me, I am sorry. And so I think that's a big thing. But traditionally, pastors never said they were sorry.
Well, they didn't have to.
They didn't have to, right?
Because the church is so forgiving.
Yeah, the body of Christ, it should be forgiving, but we're human, right? And if I want my church to be forgiving, me as the leader have to show forgiveness
And accountability.
and accountability, right?
Yes.
And responsibility. As a pastor, I'm responsible and I'm accountable, right? And if I've hurt, then I need to go and say, hey, I'm sorry. I erred. I'm wrong, right? And then you still have to rebuild a relationship, right? Me and my sister was just talking about that. Just growing up, how there's a lot of church hurt. Now I want to take this time to pause. And church hurt goes both ways,
I was
right? So church hurt goes both ways.
The congregation.
Congregation isn't innocent, but as pastors, we are supposed to take those knives and things like that. But as a pastor, when you talk about those things, you just gotta, man. It's more about you understanding what that person needs. And if I'm in a relationship with that person and I'm speaking to that person, and it's more than me just shaking your hand or always asking you to do something. I'm always about, man, let's go eat, let's build, let's just talk, let's just, you know what I mean, text me, let's do something. With the whole conversation, that's why I don't think I could be a mega church pastor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm too folksy. I like to know people. I like Pastor Winstead was my pastor. Pastor J.V. Winstead, may he rest in peace, was my pastor. And even though he had a larger church, Ebenezer Baptist Church, located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, even though he had a lot of people, when we would shake hands after service, he knew something about each person that came by and shook his hand and could have that conversation. Hey, how's your mama? I heard that she was in the hospital. And I took that like, wow, that's amazing. But that's relationships, right? And that's you gotta have relationships.
And
brother.
people remember that stuff when you show up. I know my husband talks about this all the time, that his Pastor Page,
Pastor Page, yeah.
used to come to his games. That meant a lot to him. Just making that effort outside of church, because when you make the relationship efforts, it doesn't look so performative on Sundays, because you actually know people and you know their situations. So
I love that. I love that when you make, and that's the thing. Like back to James' point, that's the thing. When we're talking about people leaving, if you had a relationship and you do those things, then it's not such a big issue. it's almost like your child is leaving the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? The door is always open, right? You can always come home, right? You can always
Yeah.
come home, and you can always come home. The door is always open. My children got keys to my house, and I changed the lock 12 times. You know what I mean? And they for some reason there's still always a key.
Mm-hmm.
The light's always left on for them. But you got to have those relationships, man. That's why important. I know I'm sitting here with two ministers. It's important to build those relationships. It's important to understand be accountable and responsible for your part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to go to those things. It's important to go to those games, to show up at those recitals, and you know what I mean. That's important. That's a
Yeah.
part of passion. When I was a child, my pastor didn't come to anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? But everybody loved my pastor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loved my. But I didn't see my pastor at my basketball games. I didn't see my pastor at my basketball games until my name started to hit the paper.
Okay.
Right. Right.
And there it is.
Right. There it is. Right. Now my name is in the paper. Now all of a sudden, oh yeah, and his pastor. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to build those things even now. Build those things even now. Oh, back to your point. I'm sorry, we went around the circle.
Oh, we
All right.
good.
All right. Oh, season, reasons, and lifetime. Right. If they understand those things, then as a pastor, you'll be able to navigate a little better. And you also, as a pastor, you can't have your ego, can't lead with ego, right? And you got to be kingdom minded. The traditional church is not kingdom minded. The traditional church is about my four walls. A non-traditional church is going to be about kingdom minded, about community,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
And those are the things that we have to work more towards as a body of Christ, right? It's hard for a Baptist preacher to come on to who has a Baptist church to sit there and say, "Oh no, we gotta go outside the walls and actually do it."
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about a missionary necessarily thing. I'm talking about actually being involved with your community
Mm-hmm.
from the pulpit to the usher board, right?
Mhm.
Everybody needs to be involved in the community. That's why I love this platform, right? Because you guys' platform are giving that opportunity out.
And so, and it's funny you touched on this because we talked about this a couple times in the previous podcast, and it always seems to come back to this thing about community, and we'd love to get your perspective. So, part of what we see now, and it kind of ties with tradition versus modernization. We have, it seems like, churches on every block,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have multiple churches in this community, but it feels as though we're not putting the community's needs as a priority. We're putting our own church's needs, whether it's inside the walls, and when we go outside the walls, you don't see the collaboration. You see more of, oh, I got to do this because I got to get these people. I got to do this because I got to get these people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more so people are doing things to compete for the numbers and the people rather than trying to do it for the community. And I think if the church would change and start doing things for the sake of the community, you'll see more collaborative efforts between the churches in the community to do things for the community. And it's just sometimes kind of mind blowing. It's like, well, you don't see, like, you might see a community church block. Well, why there's 4 churches in this block? Why is it one church doing this? Or you'll see, some street closed off and it's one church with all these pamphlets, but oh, you gotta come here, you gotta come here. Why aren't we collaborating?
Well, you hit it. You hit the nail on the head. We don't collaborate because we're man, y'all gonna get me in trouble. We don't collaborate because pastors are competitive,
I feel that.
right?
Yeah.
It's about you hit it. It's about I need to get this many people, this many people. If I collaborate with you, then they don't see my church.
Mm-hmm.
If I do it by myself, then they see my church. Again, there's no real kingdom mindset. There's nothing about community. And just where our church sits, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. eight, maybe 8 churches within a 4 block radius. If you go, yeah, about 4 block radius. And one of the things that we've been trying to work on is how do we, when if you're doing a community day, how about we all do the community day on the same day and just shut down the community
Yeah.
and show them that the kingdom of God is here, that God is in the midst of this. But it's kind of difficult because every pastor wants to have their own thing, right? Their own thing, because I'm trying to grow my church, not the church, my church,
Was it
right?
always like that though, or do you recognize like there's been a shift over the generations?
It's been a shift over the generations. When I first stepped into ministry, um, coming from Denver back to Pittsburgh, um, I know that on the hill there was what they call the 5 and 1. They did everything together, which was more powerful, right? Then just over years, I just start watching. Everybody wants to be the next mega church.
Yeah.
They're going out and they're trying to do things to set their church on top. Look, my feelings are about that is that the people that God has for your church are for your church, right? And that God will send the people for your church to your church. And just because everybody is not equipped to be a mega minister, a mega pastor, pastor of a mega church. I'm not equipped to do that. I'm too folksy, right? I love people. You know what I mean? And when you start to talk about mega churches, you start talking about CEOs and that type of things,
Turns business.
right? Turns business, right? But if we would just understand what our lanes are,
Yeah.
we'll be more apt to sit and say, let's collaborate because it's about the kingdom, it's about this community. The community, every community that a church is in is struggling with something. I don't care if it's an
Yes.
affluent community or a more impoverished community, there's a struggle in it. And if we as church leaders and churches will understand our community and understand the struggles in it and start to address those struggles, your community become stronger, right?
And they'll want to come.
And they'll want to come. They will want to come. They will want to come and be a part. Right now, you have a church that said to say, oh, the needs of the community is food, and that's not it. The root of it is maybe that our school system is
Yeah.
not working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It may be, oh, the need of the community is this, and that may not. It may be just simple that the policing is not right.
Right.
So we don't get to the root cause of things. We keep throwing on these band-aids or these easy targets, and we're not addressing as a kingdom, as a body of Christ in the community what the real issues are.
I remember my mother always saying, the community or the church was the community. All the services, all the resources and everything came out of the church. There wasn't EBT and SNAP and all of those other things. You go to the church if you're in need.
And that's church, right? So that's the church that I remember, right? That's the traditions of the church that I hope that we keep.
Timeless.
Right. Those are the timeless things, right?
Yep.
Those are the timeless things. Those are the things that we should keep. That if you needed something, we like. Corona may not have the material things that you need, but we should be connected to somebody who does. Right. Right. And,
Yes.
and that if that person doesn't have something, they should be connected to Corona who does.
Yes.
Right. But it should be a kingdom mindset, and you should be able to go to the church for whatever your needs are. Right, and then of course there's got to be things in place because you got people who going to hustle the
of
systems,
course.
right? but those are the timeless things that the traditional things that I think that we should not be broken, because when we always talk about bringing the tithes to the storehouse and the meet me in my house, and what we don't realize is that that's not talking about money; it's talking about substance. So if there is famine in the land, right, that you can go into the storehouse, and get what you need out.
Yeah.
Right. And those are the things that we need to consider as a community, as a church community trying to serve the people of God.
Yeah. I mean, I could think even something as simple as voting. And we all know the importance of the Black vote
Mm-hmm.
and how we need to make our voices heard through voting and how important that is.
Mm-hmm.
The day of the election, there was a church service in the East End.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
we are now, talking about, oh, the president did this and he did that, we weren't promoting or we weren't encouraging enough. Like, we may have said it over the pulpit, but you have a service during the time where you should be having people taking people to the polls and encouraging them that way. It's just sending the wrong message. So for me, I feel like if we want to get back to, the church being taken seriously as like the steeple of the community,
The
a lot
voice.
of the things that the church does needs to really just think twice about.
But I think that goes back to one of the problems from a self-centered or egoistic standpoint is that they're so I think that pastors, ministers, they're so focused on their image and protecting their kind of, ministry, whatever,
Their
that they're
legacy.
afraid, their legacy,
Yeah.
they're afraid to have an opinion when it comes to politics. They're afraid to speak out about some of where they stand on some issues, and they're afraid to address some issues over the pulpit where traditionally, right, they used to preach about that and teach about that over the pulpit and give that hope, talk about the oppression, talk about this and that. And now, because there's people that have different viewpoints, oh, if I speak on this, I'm going to lose
Half my
X,
church.
Y,
Right.
Z. If I talk on this, I'm gonna lose X, Y, and Z. So I'm just not gonna speak about it at all and not give an opinion.
And don't forget, sometimes you're not allowed if you got a 501c3.
That part.
Well,
And then you go into this whole thing with we can go into
Yeah.
doctrine
doctrine.
Yeah.
and
Right.
bylaw
Right.
and all these other things that kind of put you in this box where it's like, okay, you can't. And then it goes to, well, who runs the church? Is it the pastor or is it the deacons and the deaconesses? And if you do something that they don't like,
Right. Then they voting you out. So here's the thing. When I got to my church, and I'm just going to go in Corone because I love Corone. Corone loves me, right? And they know that I just kind of whatever comes here kind of comes out. So one of the things when I first got to the church, I'm an activist, right? I mean, look, we did marches to measurables, where we say, hey, we need the police to be more accountable. We're a big component in the police getting body cams, right? So so I was part of this organization called PIN, which is Pennsylvania Interfaith Impact Network, which I'm still kind of social with. I actually sat as a chair of the educational task force. I sat on the chair. I sat on the board of the spiritual caucus, which was kind of the spiritual guidance of this thing. So we sit in these places and we have an opportunity to make a difference. One of the reasons that people want to come to church back in the day, politicians want to come to church and get with the pastors because the pastors had a voice and had a lot of people, right? What we have done is a lot of times that we have allowed politics to seep too much into the church and not talk about the oppression, not talk about the real issues because I'm afraid to, right? You cannot be afraid to speak out. You cannot be afraid to say this is right, this is wrong, right? It's called justice. And if any pastor would tell you that being a pastor, being a preacher is not about social justice, then they ain't read the Bible,
Yes.
right? So you have to walk in those things and understand what your calling is, right? Sure, our calling is to get people to Christ and in relationship with Christ, but part of that is taking up for the oppressed, the marginalized, right? And so as pastors, we get away from that because we are afraid to lose our church. one of the things is that if we're going to have a church service, let's have a church service leading up to that day, right? Maybe have some leading up to that day, and on that day, how about we get with the rest of the churches around,
Mm-hmm.
get some vans and drive people to the polls, right?
Mhm.
Right. How about we use that as kind of a social action
Yes.
type of thing, right? And so those are the things like when we talk about traditionalism versus modern, that's timeless. So we keep
Yeah.
pulling back at this time. Those are the things that are times. Those are the things that the church, why the church has so much power.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It's because the pastors, the voices of the church, were not afraid. Right now, when you get into because we don't want to be voted out of the church, or we're afraid to lose our church, our job,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
We don't want to step on toes. I'll be dad, man. Look here, dag nabbit, dog on it, right? I'm going to speak out on the things I need to speak out that God gives me, and I hope that every pastor does that,
Right.
right? That's how you make the change. You be involved, right? I just
Yeah.
became the vice moderator of the AUBA, which is a very traditional of for the Pittsburgh area. It was a very traditional organization.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to understand why God put me in this place because I'm right because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
But what I realize is going into this and through prayer and fasting is that I'm there to move it forward
Mm-hmm.
so it can have the voice that it once had. Right. And so, I'm excited there. So, we're gonna keep we talk about the timeless things, but how does that timeless thing for the church look different in the modern era?
Yeah.
Right. It just gotta look
It gotta
different.
look different.
Right.
And I think that's the key. I think that's the key. Um, so yeah, this was great.
Yeah. We
We
always say this
definitely
at the end. Go ahead and say it. We're gonna bring you back for a
we
part
need
two.
we need no because we need a part two because there's a whole nother conversational piece that we did not discuss today, and that's more centered around um, the younger ministers and you know your kind of role and passion for developing
Oh my God.
ministers
Love
and
ministers.
just us navigating being new ministers and kind of sharing our story with that and your story and how some of the challenges that we face. So we definitely want to talk about that, but that's a whole another
Man, that's
episode.
no hour. That's another hour,
That's
man.
another episode. So before we wrap up, we
Yeah.
do this game, this kind of rapid fire, this
Oh,
or that.
here we go.
No
It's
explanations.
just like drink champs.
No,
Kinda.
kinda, sorta, but no explanations. Just
Okay.
quick answers.
Okay.
This or that. So hymns or modern worship songs.
Don't
Oh,
get in trouble.
man, I like modern worship songs.
All right.
Right.
Suits or robes.
Well, suits,
Pews or chairs.
chairs,
Yeah, we
Mm.
know what that is. Choir or praise team.
praise team,
Liturgy or open flow.
open flow.
Okay. Topical or expository preaching.
Ooh, expository.
Okay. Series or standalone messages.
Mm.
I do a lot of standalone messages right now. Depends on my season.
Manuscripts or outlines.
Oh Lord.
I need a roadmap. If not, I'll be up there for 3 hours. Manuscript.
Yeah, all right, that's what I got. You got anything?
Yeah,
You got
yeah,
No,
anything
I
else
don't,
for
I
that?
don't have any.
But that suit and robe thing, it depends on man, because
This
that's
man is
this-
so
so,
excited.
alright, so
that
like,
I
we
know
got-
I
so
we got 5 minutes. So here's
so that
here's,
come on, man, come on.
here's my
I
my
love a robe.
dilemma. Here's my dilemma. So what I get so wrapped up and go back and forth with is probably the things that are the least likely thing that someone should be worried about.
He is
So
worried about somebody's robe.
I'll have my message ready to go, but then I'll sit there and go back and forth. Do I wear uh, a robe, dashiki? Do I wear a suit? I don't like suits.
Okay.
No, he
okay.
wants a robe.
Well, he's
But
gonna get a
then
robe.
I was like, but I
You
kind of
go-
want my own
You gonna
like
get a-
style, and I want to keep the young adult vibe. So
Well-
I got these
Dashiki robe.
Christian. I got these Christian little bomber jackets.
Well, where that?
He
But
wants
then-
a robe.
Well, here's the thing. I get why you want a robe, cause I want a robe too. I had robes.
You don't wear.
Man, look here now. But the thing is that the robe comes in handy when we're doing high church, right?
Yeah.
So when we're doing things high church, when we ordaining and we doing things like this, robes and clergy attire is necessary.
All right, let's talk about this. We got 4 minutes. So I found myself thrown in the fire
I got you, didn't I?
for
got it.
initial sermon.
I got him.
You did.
And I had no robe or nothing,
You got hooked up though.
Yeah, I put
but
him
I
in the
had an assignment, so I had to toss on the road
Right.
that ain't fit.
robe. Right, it was bad.
It was bad. So instead, I had a jacket, a preacher jacket, and we had to rock with that.
Yeah, the rock.
And it looked okay. It felt okay until I looked back on the video, and I was swimming in this jacket. I was like,
It was
"Ooh,
almost like a robe.
I'm glad I wasn't up here too long."
Here's the thing. One of the things I will always say is that whenever you are going into, always come in as ministers as if they're going to ask you to the pulpit, right? You always got to make sure that. The other thing, like it's just in Corona, anytime that we do ordinations and licensing, collar, or those type of things.
Lesson learned.
Those things are, and the reason those things are necessary is that those things are some of the traditional things that we kind of want to make sure that we keep in
That are timeless.
Right,
That are timeless.
And
So
you just want to be in a timeless robe.
you just want to be.
Look,
He's going to get a robe,
you
but
got-
but
you
yeah,
gonna have to
Get-
get one of them shirts and bands too.
yeah, you gonna have to get
It's
one.
coming. You gonna have
It's
to get
coming.
one.
And the thing is, like we don't wear them all the time, but you gotta have your clergy attire. You gotta have it because we talked about when people leave, you don't know where you're going. And they're going to say, "Hey, this is kind of the way the house runs." Right? You don't know where God's going to drop you into. You're going to have into one of them old,
Go get
real
that robe,
traditional
Naomi.
Baptist church,
Go
Oh,
get
your
that
neck.
robe.
right? And
Go get that robe.
yeah.
They got them in black, white, fuchsia.
Just start off with the clergy shirt, right? The tab. Get your little preacher,
dress.
your little preacher
Little
shirt,
black
or something,
on black.
preacher jacket and stuff. Because most of the time I wear my preacher jacket.
You can wear sneakers with it.
I wear sneakers.
Look, there you go.
Right.
That'll be your.
And you also got to understand like what it is, right? So like if he were to come and preach and he has on his, what else was you talked about? Like his dashiki. That's not out of the ordinary in my pulpit, right? Or in the congregation. But I don't know if that would fly in a very starch.
Yeah,
Traditional-
I've been to some traditional places.
Right.
I put that black on black.
Put that black and white
The
on,
white
right?
on black.
The white on black, man. Right. And so those things happen. You just gotta understand where you
It's
at.
kind of flow.
Right.
Even when I was coming to Corona preaching as a guest, I came correct. But now
Yeah.
I can be a little loose.
You can be a little loose, right? Yeah. You can
Just a little bit.
Right. You can
Just a tad
right.
bit.
Yeah, you can be who
tad
you
bit.
are. One of the things that developing ministers, and we'll get into this, is that you want to allow them the space to be who they are authentically. Someone preached a sermon that said, "Let God be God, but let me be me."
Oh, that sounds good.
Right.
I wonder who did that.
I know that sounds like that.
So
preach.
someone preached that. So in that situation, you want to make sure that they are authentically them.
Okay. Well, thank you, and
Thank y'all.
we'll be back for part
We'll
two.
be back for part 2.
Yeah.
Look, like,
Listen.
subscribe, share this with all your people. We're on all podcasts, Cross Perspectives. Love y'all. We're out. Peace.
Love you. Peace.